everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from irishsportsdaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uwiyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Friday, June 21st, and we've got a pretty action-packed show, Jamie. We were talking about it before we came on. We've got roster updates, jersey number changes. Duce night is at the Elite 11. Opinions vary on his performance there. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about buy or sell. We're going to do a buy or sell segment of the show where we just go through the remaining prospects in the 2025 class if we buy or sell them, eventually joining the Notre Dame class in 2025. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If this is your first time catching our show, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And if you are a podcast listener and you haven't done so already, rate 5-star. Give us a rating on that. 5-star review would be great, or 5-star rating. And if you want to review the show and tell us how we're doing, then that would be great as well. We really appreciate that. Summer is here, and that means wedding season is upon us, Jamie. I don't know if you noticed. Ian Book got married over the weekend at Notre Dame. Yes, he got married at Notre Dame, and I believe he was wearing some ESQ threads. He wanted to look his best, and if you want to look your best, then head over to esqclothing.com, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. With over a decade of making the best custom clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2024. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt, or bomber jacket, or that perfect tuxedo for wedding season like Ian Book was sporting over the weekend, check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. Congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Ian Book. Love to see that. You love to see, Notre Dame football players moving on and leading happy and prosperous lives. Jamie, I was on vacation. I forgot to tell you. It totally blew. I just totally forgot. I'm going on vacation this week. We went up to Sequoia to the mountains. I was in nature. People follow me on Twitter. They saw some photos of me and the scenery and stuff like that. So I apologize, everyone, for not having a show. How are you doing? Has the last week been treating you, Jim?
It's been pretty good. I'm solo parenting this week, so just that I'm tired. But other than that, I'm good. Yeah, other than that, I'm good. It's been a good week.
Yeah, that's always tough, right? The solo parenting thing, right? It's difficult, but we power through. We hit and we hustle, and that's good. I think we could start if we're going to do a Friday show. There's a lot of things that go on. We could do a segment called Friday News Dump, where we go over the news items of the day. Something breaking. Abe Froman put it in the chat. The sausage king of Chicago. Ford and Gobira placed on medical scholarships. So Tyson Ford and Aiden Gobira have been placed on medical scholarships for Notre Dame. They will not count towards the football team total in scholarships, but they still will be on scholarship at the University of Notre Dame, so they'll be able to get their degree should they choose to do so. He really had high hopes for Gobira. I know you did as well. That knee injury was brutal. And I think on Gobira's end, if I recall, it was the end of maybe the last play of a scrimmage period last fall camp, if I remember that correctly. Am I saying that?
No, it wasn't. It was during a scrimmage, but it wasn't like the last play. It was like in the middle of the scrimmage. But
got it.
It was like it didn't happen during the play. Like he got a sack.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a celebration thing, but it was like right after he had the sack.
Got it.
So, which obviously sucks even more. It's just like, when you think about like Drew Tranquil,
yes,
his knee and that kind of thing. But it was it was a non-contact thing, as they tend to typically be. And it sucked because he was playing well in that scrimmage. And he was probably someone that you were looking at last year. Like, because they had Nana behind JJB, and Nana was gonna play. Like, it was, he was pretty secure that he was going to play. But
Mm-hmm.
the one thing the Nana never really did was he never really provided much of a pass rush.
Yeah.
Uh, Solid versus the run, but not much of a pass rush. So Gobera had a chance to kind of maybe, make some noise. Maybe if he kept progressing, like, he could kind of work his way into the rotation, and it didn't happen for him. Obviously, because of that injury, it sucks. And I mean, he would have been in tough kind of coming back from it, even if he was healthy, just because of kind of like, well, they got, they moved Burnham over there, and then they got Bryce Young coming up and all this stuff. So it was going to be a tough road for him. It's always tough when you get hurt kind of uh, heading into, like, after in your second year, heading into your third, which is the third
Yeah.
year, such a huge year for everyone. So he was going to be in tough, but just, it really sucks to kind of see um, that happen. And then, he never got a chance to play at Notre
Mm-hmm.
Dame. That really, really sucks.
I think that this is the part of like college football, college sports, college athletics, any kind of athletics where someone incurs an injury and it's during their development of, he's growing into, he's, recruited, oh, he's going to be a Viper, and he's going to big end, right? And you are developing into that. And when you incur an injury like this, you never know how that can curtail someone from a development standpoint, from just how they grow into being a college football player. And that's the variable that you don't know about, right? Some guys, they bounce back and it's nothing. And some guys, like, it really affects their career trajectory in a way that's not. Now he's not on football scholarship. He is not going to be a football player at Notre Dame. I think he could transfer somewhere else and play. But this eliminates the possibility of him being a football player at Notre Dame. And that's, like you said, it's a bummer and it's terrible. And especially for it to happen in a non-contact way, it's kind of a nothing play. And if that doesn't happen, you just never know how he continues to ascend, how he continues to develop. So that's bad for him. Happy that he gets to stay at Notre Dame and obviously, earn his degree should he choose to do that. With Tyson Ford, I think that, I don't know the physical end of this for him in terms of getting put on medical. But he was one where it was, I think he kind of flashed early, and then that just kind of like that stopped happening. Basically, he stopped. What was he going to be an end? Was he going to be a three? What was he going to play? He could never really figure out where he was going to impact the team. And now he's been put on medical as well. Had you heard anything about the medical aspect of this? Sometimes it's just like your body's getting beat up. And that can, that's grounds for being like, what? It's almost like a retirement, basically, from being a football player at the university or at. So, yeah, it was kind of trending for him in that direction as well.
Yeah, I don't know any kind of specifics with Ford in terms of injury wise or whatever. Uh, I mean, it's just obvious he wasn't going to play at Notre Dame. Like, he
Mm-hmm.
was behind where I think there was, with Gobera, there was more hope for it. And last year he just kind of didn't really take the steps that people kind of thought he was. And maybe he got passed by some of the freshmen. And then you look at, like, some of the other guys. And this is another thing that's, I think the depth at Notre Dame just overall with the roster is better than it was.
Yeah.
A, a lot of times where maybe I mean, these guys were obviously great players. Like Drew Tranquil and Sean Crawford were great players for Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
But the way it worked out for them, it might have been a tougher road for them if they were dealing with the current roster.
Yeah.
Than they were the rosters that they were dealing with at the time, because the depth's a bit better. So it's a steeper hill to climb up from that after injury. So I think one of the things with just like Ford in general was like he kind of didn't really find a fit where, was he going to play inside? And then he like wanted to, he gained all this weight. And then I don't know if maybe he wasn't supposed to gain the weight because he was big. He was like 290 something.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's like 270, whatever, in the fall. And he was like, oh, going to mix inside and out. And I was like, well, that's not like, you want to find a fit. You want to find a fit. And he just never really found a fit and never really kind of established himself. So I don't know. Like I don't know. I mean, a lot of guys too. This is the other thing is like you said, there's a lot of people too that I know me. I could have taken medical retirements during my time playing as well. There's a lot of guys, right, that you just play. And I was like, by the end, I was like hanging on, like that's kind of where a lot of guys are, at the end of their, college careers, let alone pro careers. Right. So these guys who do it for, decades, like I can't even imagine, but like it's tough. So he might've just been beat up and that was part of it too, but just never really found his spot. And it's unfortunate because obviously he was a guy who was, pretty highly touted recruit when he was being recruited. Like it was, I think that was the very first big Marcus Freeman recruiting win when he was a defensive coordinator. Like he was like trending towards Oklahoma, and then Freeman kind of got that back on track.
Yeah, it was like he had committed to Notre Dame. Then I think he had silented to Oklahoma, if that's the story. He had silently committed to them, and then Marcus Freeman kind of pulled him back. And so it was like that. Oh, Marcus Freeman, like magic recruiting guy, right? That's how Notre Dame's going to get 5 stars in every class, right? And obviously that's hasn't come to fruition for reasons we don't need to go into. But it's unfortunate that it didn't work out with Tyson Ford. But good luck to him, and he can also get his degree. Other Friday news dumps. We've got some number changes, Jamie. Everyone loves the number changes, and I think the big news is number 1 is back on an offensive player. Jaden Greathouse is taking the number 1 at wide receiver. A message of intent, in my opinion, of Greathouse taking that number 1. That befits his, I think, his personality. So he's going to be a number 1. Jordan Faison is going to be a number 6. Logan Saldate is going to take Greathouse's old number 19. And this is one, Jamie. Boubacar Traore is going to wear number 5 for Notre Dame as a defensive end. What is the minimum amount of sacks that he has to accrue at this point to justify the 5? Does he have to go? Is it enough if he just leads the team in sacks, or does he have to go above double digits now?
No, he doesn't have to go above double digits.
To me, this is a bigger statement than Greathouse taking number 1 for a defensive end taking number 5 here.
I think it is obviously a very important number for Notre Dame. Obviously when you think of Manti and everything that means with that number there. And but I also think like it's anytime if you're a D lineman and you're wearing single digits, you got to be a straight baller. There is no in between. If you're not, like, brother, you need to medically retire. Like that's what's got to happen. Like that's if you're not a baller and you're taking a single digit, like you got to. I think single digits in general, like
they're coveted.
They're coveted, but definitely for a defensive lineman, right? And I think like when you think of like just defenders in general, I think of like Jalen, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you think of Knicks, right? Like that was another one. Like those are just it's a big deal. It's a big deal when guys do it. And you think of X Watts, right? Yeah. And and then he lived it up to it, right? So I think that kind of stuff is I mean, some people care about the numbers more than others. You know, and the other thing is sometimes people make those numbers good because they're
Mm-hmm.
just good, right? So
For real.
I think that's another thing that kind of gets lost in it. But yeah, it's you're wearing 5 on the defensive line. Yeah, as Michael pointed out, Stephon Tuitt as well, right? Those single digits, like
Yeah.
I can't think of a guy single digits. Who's the last single digit guy that was like? It hasn't happened in a
It's
long
not
time
good. I mean,
for a defensive lineman. For a
for D
defensive lineman.
lineman, I couldn't say. I mean, because Lou Nix was obviously very good. Tuitt was very good. I mean, I'm thinking like Corey Minor was a linebacker, but he played basically what the Viper position is now, and he was number 4. He was very
Yeah.
good. He had a ton of sacks. I mean, I'm kind of blanket. Let's see.
There's not too many guys who've worn
Did
it. So.
Did Ishak Williams wear number 1 at any point? I know he was number 11, but did he try to wear number 1?
No, I don't think so. I think he was always 11.
He was
I
always
don't remember.
11.
I
Okay.
don't remember him being 1. If he did, I think
Yeah.
he'd be the
He's the
one
answer.
thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's probably why he was one of the Frozen 5, right? Because of that. No, not really. But like, yeah.
Javonte Jean-Baptiste wore number 1, and he was good.
He balled
out
in his last year. I think it is something like you better bring it when you do it. So I love that kind of stuff. I love that.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
Ryan asks, and by the way, there's a bunch of questions in the chat. I'm going to get to them at different points of the show. So hang in there, everyone who's asked a question, because they're all they're all topical to what we're going to talk about today. Ryan is asking if Notre Dame handed down a special number like other teams do, which number would it be? So like I know USC is very particular about their 55 for linebackers, right? Yeah. So I guess what is the number where it's like, hey, you got to be, if you're wearing this number at Notre Dame, you got to be great, right?
I mean,
what
I
number
think they've kind of done that, right? Like 25 and 3 if you're a quarterback. Like it's a big number, right? Obviously. So that's a huge one. You know, because you think of like that was one of the things with like Rick Meyer when he was getting it, because it was like, well, this is what Montana wore. So
yeah,
you know,
it comes. Yeah. Meyer got number 3. Yeah, and then Paulus got number 3. I feel like it's more of a with Notre Dame.
And then they've given it to other skill guys since then. But like, if you're a quarterback who wears 3, I think it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And then 25, like they've given 25 to guys when they came in. So like you think of after the Rocket, they had Randy Kinder. It was like Randy Kinder was very hyped when he came in, and it was like, we're giving you 25. Like,
I mean, very rightly so as well.
You know, make us proud here, because you're going to wear 25. Even Tyree, when they had it, like he came in, it was like, we're giving you 25. Like, because they want that. There is something to it, and obviously he changed numbers later on. And I mean, neither Kinder or Tyree, and I'm sure there's been other guys too that I'm blanking on.
Munir Prince.
Was he 25?
He was, yeah.
Oh gosh, come on, Charlie. Horrible job. Horrible job by the early Charlie Weiss staff, because he went whoosh a couple times. They gave him 25.
Yeah. He looked good, and he looked good in practice.
Oh, there, Michael brought it up. Michael Floyd wearing 3. 3. I would say 3 is the one. Is the number 1 of the list.
3 would be, but like Notre Dame doesn't treat it like you have to earn it. You know, like you just kind of get it. Let's see. What was Floyd? Was Floyd number 3 like straight away?
I believe
as a freshman he wore 3, right? Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, look, so they gave it to him because he's like a 5-star, right? So
they do a good job with number 3 in terms of like, hey, if it's kind of predictive, you know, like there are no real bad players that wear 3.
I mean, I will say, like, you know, and no shots at obviously Jabron Payne, because you know he's a fine player, and I think he would have had a good year, but like Jabron Payne isn't like on the level of those guys that you would expect to have 3. But Jalen Sneed having 3 on defense is, you know, it's a deal, right? So
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's it's interesting because I think these numbers matter, but a lot of times with linemen, it's just like who, and then kind of because 10 became a thing because of Brady Quinn, right? And I think that kind of built there, but it's like so much of it is how you make it. Like, I'm sure there were great players who wore number 70 before Zach Martin. Can't recall any off the top of my head, but I'm sure there was whatever. But like now, if someone has 70, you think of the Zach Martin.
Yeah.
Right. So,
or like 56 for Q, or, if a safety comes in and wears 14, right? Like that's going to be a thing now.
Yeah.
So, the greats create the tradition there. Who do you remember the last wide receiver to wear number 1? I think I know who it is. I didn't check, but I'm pretty sure I know who it is.
I mean, there had to be someone after Mays that I just can't think of.
100% after Mays, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he's the one who stands out. Man, I'm thinking about it.
I'm gonna check.
Was Rhema McKnight? Was he a
No,
one?
he wore 5. He wore 5.
He was 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
I believe it was Deion Walker.
Deion Walker. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a blast from the past.
I don't think anyone since him has worn it.
They were like, we better move this to the side.
And before him was DJ Horde. If you remember him, he was a wide receiver. Charlie's. I don't remember.
He came in the very first class.
Yeah, he was a big hit. He was a big deal.
At that time, they were getting like no one.
Yeah,
and he was like the only like 4-star kid that they got at the end, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I understand why they did it at the time, but obviously it didn't work out. But
Deion Walker was a big get too. He was gonna go.
He was a very big get at the time. And I don't know, which is also too why I do like that idea of like guys are kind of established in the program, and then it's like, okay, well, if you want to switch, you can switch to this now. Like I like that. That's a cool thing. But I also got like total mad respect for guys who just like, you know what, this is my number. I'm rolling with it this whole time.
I'm wearing it.
I'm making it. This is my number, and I'm making it.
And honestly, like I don't think there's a wide receiver who has embodied like that number 1 better than like Derek Mays. Like he was the perfect.
He was wide receiver
personality for it. Yeah, he was the perfect personality for it. Even as a young player, he was. He kind of owned it. He owned that. He owned that number. I think that's it for the number stuff. I think we got everything. Tyler Buckner, 26, the best number on the field. Congratulations to him. I wore 26. He's wearing 26. I love it for Tyler. That's good stuff. So happy to have him back on the roster. All right, moving on. Duce Knight at the Elite 11. I believe On 3 had him as the MVP of the camp. And the last I saw, On 3 had him the MVP of like day 2. Rivals had him like 11th of the quarterbacks on day 2. So 20 quarterbacks total. On the one hand, one site says best one of the day. The other one says on the lower half of quarterbacks on the day. So that's why I said at the top of the show, opinions vary on this sort of thing. Where do you come out on the Elite 11? Your opinion of how the rankings go, how people kind of, is it a big deal to you? What are you kind of looking for? Obviously, you don't want to hear about like Duce Knight was throwing a bunch of ducks. I think by all accounts, he's got a big time arm and some big time athletic ability. Well, where do you net out on this sort of thing?
I think it's great if guys do well there.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with kind of like rewarding them ranking wise, I guess, if you want to bump guys up because they look really good there and maybe they showed something that they didn't before. I think that's good, especially when you think of Duce Knight. You don't think of, man, this guy's going to rip up the pro day. Like that's not what people would think of with his game, right?
Yeah.
First and foremost, right? And
Mhm.
I do think like playing all that like 7-on, kind of leading up and all that kind of stuff where he did obviously well. I think he was the MVP of that that tournament. God, I can't remember the name of it, right? But the one
OT7.
right OT7 right before. So I mean, he's had a good spring, summer, right? So far, right? So that's and that helps build into that, like rather than the guys who are like maybe just walking into that and not doing it. But I don't know. Like I've been to a lot of Elite 11s, and I just would say that I would when you're there, you could. It's so easy to get caught up and be like, oh, man, this guy looks phenomenal, right? And
Yeah.
just all that, and then you're like, this guy, he sucks. Like, oh man, he looks just terrible, whatever. And you know what? Some of those guys who look terrible end up being ballers in college, and some of the guys who look great didn't go so good for them, right? Like, so it's hard. I think people shouldn't overreact to that, but I do think it's a big deal for a guy like Duce Knight when you consider, like, most people think athlete, that's why he's ranked so high, is because of his athlete and arm talent, whatever. But then when you see him go and do well in these things where he's not supposed to do well, I mean, that means something. It doesn't mean nothing, right? So I think that's important. But I do think that, when in terms of like how people react to it, um, like rivals and 24/7 on three, whoever, right? Everyone has bias going into it because they already have these guys ranked beforehand, right? So it's like NFL, just imagine if NFL teams put out their big board of how they ranked everyone before
Yeah.
the combine, and then whatever, right? And then all of a sudden they're switching names or whatever and blah 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 after. It's like there would be so much criticism of that. And I think there's a lot of it too where no one wants to be wrong. And so when they're like, if they have conviction on someone, they don't want to be wrong. And they might have their minds changed a bit, but it's a lot of it that is going to shape how they view it. Like, so, I mean, I don't know that. So I think 24/7 had Tavian St. Clair as their alpha dog or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Of the event. And not to say that he wasn't good. It sounds like he had a really good camp, but like they also had him, they viewed him, they were like very high on him going into it and thinking that he was going to be, this good beforehand. So that it's just a fact. It shapes how you are going to evaluate all these guys, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's like a lot of that going involved. And then I saw there was a one guy who's like I think Brett Coleman, I think is his name,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
who went and he wrote a couple of glowing things about Duce Knight, which is great. But it's also kind of like I almost think that stuff's not good to get caught up in that, because remember Johnny Manziel, like I made the friggin'
Yeah.
throw at the pro day, and everyone's like, man, Johnny Manziel, this guy should go top 5, right? There's all these, overreaction. Jamarcus Russell had the best pro day out of anyone, right? And let's just be honest, it's not like the pro day. I don't want to say it doesn't matter at all, because people want to see, and this camp doesn't matter at all because there's competition and guys want to come to compete, and that's a good thing. And hopefully they're going there with the intention of getting better and all that kind of stuff, and that's a good thing. But it's not football. It's not real football. It's different. So you have to grade it based on how, some of it translates, some of it doesn't. Like there was this other clip of Keelan Russell, who won the MVP of the camp, who's committed to Alabama. He flipped from SMU. There was some clip where he was like facing one way and like doing a drop and then turned the other way and then threw the football. What is that? That's the same stuff that we were talking about at the end of the podcast where I went on the rant the other day, where it's like, I don't know. I guess George Whitfield is still involved in it. I saw like a thing like he loves that stuff. I'm sorry, that doesn't help anyone play football. And it's not to say that stuff maybe doesn't look cool virally. Like the one, like I also saw there's another thing. Oh, this guy did the no look where he hit the goalpost or whatever. It's like, I'm like, nah, he looked. He threw it, looked at it, and then he turned around and then it hit. But it's like, well, if it didn't hit, then it's the Swaggy P meme. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just, that stuff's so stupid. It's so dumb. I think it's really good. I think the most important thing that people should look at it from a Duce Knight perspective, from a Notre Dame perspective, is that him doing good there is the kind of thing that if you're Derek Meadows, you're Dylan Robinson, Tanoa Kynes, John Anthony Hall, whatever, right? Like all those guys, or Burris and Bettis who are already in the class, but that's just it's another feather in the cap when you're helping to recruit these guys, because that's kind of what the perception of that kind of stuff does matter in the eyes of these other kids, right? Because especially if some people are thinking that Duce Knight is just like a runner, or he's just an athlete, he's just a freak athlete, whatever. But then you go and like, oh no, this guy, can do this too. That helps. That definitely helps. And hopefully I mean, obviously there's going to be other factors that go into these guys' decisions, but that is definitely going to help.
Yeah. And I think it matters because like the 20 top quarterbacks in the country all show up. Like I'll just speak specifically to Duce Knight. Like when has that ever been the situation where you have, it's him and all the other best guys, according to whoever, right? They're all there. And maybe he feels out of place, or maybe he would, or maybe he feels like, I can't, like he watches some of them throw. It's like, man, I don't know if I can do that. Right. Gets a little intimidated or whatever, out of his comfort zone. And maybe he has a bad camp. We've seen that before from other quarterbacks. And I just think it says something about him as a competitor, A, and B, like his kind of his makeup, that he was able to perform in that environment, right? Because like you said, some guys, it's just, he's 16, 17 years old, right? And maybe it's just like, hey, this is weird. I'm in California throwing at this camp. Everyone's watching me. It's going up. It's like a big whole deal. And it doesn't go well for him. Right. And you could explain that away. It's not definitive in any way. It's not definitive that he had a good camp. I think it's indicative of his mental makeup, that it's now twice in the 7-on-7 tournament, wins the MVP of that, right? Doesn't get to run, doesn't get to use his legs and his athleticism, thrives in that environment. And then he thrived in this environment as well. Like, to me, that is a very positive sign for what you kind of need to be the quarterback of a major college university like Notre Dame, right? I think too much is made of the Notre Dame aura mystique when it comes to being the starting quarterback, but it's certainly very high level college football, and that takes a lot of mental strength.
It's bright lights,
right? Bright lights, exactly. So I think that says a lot about Duce in that regard as well. So good job by Duce Knight on that. Let's see, one more question before we get into. There was a question about from NV Irish. Freshmen are on campus. We just talked about their numbers. What are the one or two things you can see in the summer fall camp that will lead you to believe they will make an impact absent a ton of reps with the ones? I think that is the thing, right? Because to me, there is nothing. First of all, we won't hear anything about summer. in terms of like, oh, I heard this, therefore I think this. Like, I don't think we can hear anything about Summer there other than like this guy looks good or whatever. I think even in camp, if Jamie goes to fall camp and they have open practices, maybe he'll see something that like, oh, let's say Gerby Lambert, because a lot of people are kind of, there was a question about Gerby Lambert and can he kind of become a player for the right tackle position. Unless he's getting reps with the ones or the twos, like serious reps. Like you said, I remember when you came back, you said, hey, Ben Morrison, they think he's a player because he got a ton of reps today. He got a ton of reps with the ones and twos. That he's going to play like 100%. And that is how you know is if they're, are they getting reps or are they not? If they're not, doesn't matter how they look. They're not going to play that much. It's just, that's the way it works. That's my opinion. Is there anything that you disagree with there? Is there something that you kind of look for?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, absent a ton of the reps with the ones, I think it's just, are you getting in with the twos is kind of what the main thing is, because you're not going to get too many freshmen who go with the ones, right?
Yeah.
And also too, like, it doesn't, how you're judging it shouldn't be like how much of this guy's going to help this year, because most of the guys don't help in year one. Most guys don't, and that's just a reality. Like even someone like Kyron Williams looked great in camp in 2019, was getting reps with the number one offense, at times, and was working into like packages there. I mean, he drops a pass in the opener, and then he's basically never heard from again the rest of the year, right? And sometimes it works out that way, whatever, right? Like, I think in hindsight, like, should have played him a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I think he probably would have helped them a little bit by the end of the year or something. But whatever. I think, yeah. So Ben Morrison wasn't getting reps with the ones, but he was getting a ton of reps with the twos, and he had passed over guys, older guys on the roster to get those reps. And the other thing was he was like making plays. He was like finding the football. It was an unpadded practice. So yeah, he was very physical. He was standing out. It was obvious that it were like, well, Ben Morrison can play. Like if I couldn't have watched that practice and said, well, Ben Morrison, by the time they get to Clemson, Ben Morrison is going to be awesome, and he's going to have 3 picks and whatever, or 2 picks and blah, blah, blah. Like, I never thought that was going to happen, but I thought this guy's going to be a player at Notre Dame. And I've seen that a lot of guys. So like, here's another thing. Jeremiah Wosu-Koromoa, didn't play really till year 3, right? Because he broke his foot in year 2. But I remember the first practice, and I watched individual drills for the linebackers, and just being like, man, this guy moves different than everybody else. He was just like, and every little kind of technical thing that Clark Lee had them working on, like footwork wise and all that, I'm like, this guy just did it naturally. So I was like, that's a good sign. And I mean, even on that team, I remember like that was specifically when they were like, you go through and linebackers here hitting the sled, right? And everyone's going individually, stacking up, like you're stacking, shedding, a block and then taking off, right?
Yeah.
And Coney and it was Coney and Martini and Tranquil were like the 3 kind of veteran guys there. Oh no, and then Niles Morgan too, right? It was those guys at that time. And you could see those guys were like above everybody else in terms of like their technique, how strong they were and whatever. And that's just a normal total thing for whatever. But if you see some other young guy doing that and you're like, that guy looks like those other guys, like that's an obvious thing, right? That's an obvious thing. So, and sometimes it's just like little things, like just, just standing out in good ways, like effort wise, just always noticeable around the ball on defense, right? Like Joe Alt right away, even though it was like, well, Blake Fisher's going to be the left tackle to start the year. I think it was, at that time it was pretty obvious in that year, but you're like, man, Joe Alt, like this guy looks like he can play. Like the only reason it looked like he wasn't playing is because they're like, well, they don't want to start 2 freshmen like offensive tackle, but you're like, he looks good, like look really good. So it wasn't like a shock that he played later on. And it wasn't a shock when you saw like other guys like Marist was super skinny and not, just very unrefined in a lot of ways, but he like flew to the ball with like reckless abandon. You're like, this guy looks like he's going to play at some point. He's going to help Notre Dame. And there's just a lot of things like that. And then like physically too, it's, but sometimes like you can look and I'm like, I remember Ryan Barnes, who I saw right away. Physically, he was shredded.
Can't find a better looking football player.
I was like, oh my gosh, like if this guy doesn't become a player, something's wrong. Well, something is wrong because he never became a player, right? Like, it just, so it's not always about like, how a guy looks coming off the bus, but that's something too, because if a guy's like more physically developed and you see like he's further along, that can be something, right? So but a lot of it is just like, I don't want to say like you just know it when like I've been around football a long time. I've been around Notre Dame football for many years now, covering it for ISD. And you just know when you see guys right away. Like, and it's very rare that a guy makes a really good first impression and that guy doesn't become a player. Like maybe injuries or something derails them, but like, so like Jacob Lacey was a guy who was like, he impressed right away, but the guy had a bunch of injuries and he had a bunch of things going on that helped, they kind of hurt, his time at Notre Dame. But I mean, I would stand by what I saw from him at the start there. Like he looked like a player.
Yeah. Little things make they can make a big difference for a football player and also for your media company, Jamie. And that's why you want to go in with these media companies, because they know how to hit the little stuff and they know how to make something pop that much more with the little things. And there is no better media company to go to than VSR Media, which is founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. All right, Jamie, let's get into the buy or sell segment. We've been talking about Duce Knight. Buy or sell, he ends up in the Notre Dame class.
I mean, buy. I mean, it's just everything he's done up to this point. Like, I think barring, there's major shakeup on the coaching staff, or Notre Dame has a really terrible year on offense or something like that. That's the only thing that I can think of that would lead him. Like, I know it's like, Ole Miss is still going to try and all that, but like, it is, people say like money, it's not going to be money because he's going to get paid at Notre Dame too. Like, it's not going to be a thing. It's not going to be like someone's just going to throw a ridiculous amount of money there too, especially because everything that Duce Knight has done so far and shown is like he is invested in being Notre Dame. And like you said, he is not afraid of being the guy. He wants to be the guy. And I'm sorry, even though it could be like, okay, yeah, you're home and whatever, and people like being home, whatever. It's like, you're the guy at Ole Miss. It's not the same as being the guy at Notre Dame. It's not the same at all. So I think I would be barring any of those other kind of unforeseen things, that's the only way it's that whatever. So that's why it's a buy.
I'm buying it as well. And the fact that he's transparent about the fact that, like, hey, I'm in Ole Miss. He's from Mississippi. He's basically transparent, and it's like I'm not sure, but I love Notre Dame. Everything he does points to he loves Notre Dame. He wants to go to Notre Dame. I'm not concerned at this point at all. Things can change, of course. I'm just not worried about it. I'm just not. I think he's gonna be okay. I'm buying on this. PQ, what it do? I see that. I see your question. We'll get to that after this segment. I don't want to break up the segment, but I will get to that. I promise. Thank you for the super chat. And I will give you an honest answer about that. All right. Buy or sell. Ivan Taylor signs with Notre Dame come signing day. I'll throw it out there. So Ivan Taylor, listen, when you're doing the thing when it's like, I don't know when my timeline is to make a final decision. This is an uncommitted player. Like it's when you're talking about a decision, again, your previous decision is kind of, I don't want to say it's meaningless because I don't think it's meaningless per se, but like you're making another announcement. You have
Notre it means you're not committed.
Yeah, you're an uncommitted player. That's how I see it. But I do think he will end up with Notre Dame. And I do think that the fact that he hasn't decommitted. Here's the thing, Jamie.
When he hasn't decommitted
it's meaningful. Well, here's the thing. When people decommit publicly or whatever, I'm not saying he's done it non-publicly or whatever. I'm just saying when they come out and say, hey, my recruitment is open and I'm still considering X school, they never go to X school. They never go to the school they just decommitted from. It just doesn't happen. Right. So to me,
Stephon Tuitt did.
Well, that was weird, right? Like that was a
very
weird thing.
But yeah. But yes, I would agree. 99% of the time, yes. Yeah.
Yes, you're not going back. And so I just think the fact that it's like, hey, I'm looking at these other schools, but I don't want to decommit from Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame is still the favorite here. And I think Notre Dame will pull it off. I do. I think the Steeler thing is real. I think that matters. In some, it's like a non-zero thing. I don't know how much, but I think it matters. And I think that Notre Dame really needs to just continue to grow the relationship with him. He was recruited by Chris O'Leary, right? He's got to feel like, hey, I'm in on Notre Dame still, right? I'm still buying in what they're selling me. And I think they will, and I think they'll get him. Honestly, I think he's going to end up at Notre Dame. So I'm going to buy this on Ivan Taylor.
You know what? I'm going to buy it too. And I know, I mean, really, it should be a kind of a hold, really, like is what. But if I have to pick one, I'll pick buy. If you read Intel today, it's basically a hold, right? Like that's kind of like, that's where Notre Dame sees it as like, we don't know for sure. Like,
yeah,
at this time, right? So we'll see what happens. But I do think that there's a lot going in Notre Dame's favor because one, Notre Dame's going to play great defense again. They're going to put another safety or two in the league after this year. The DBs are going to play great. As Matt reported, there's intention to come to multiple games during the season. And I do think it's one of those things where you have all those guys who played with the Steelers and, obviously Bettis's kid, is there. Plaxico Burress's kid is in the class. You got Ike Taylor's kid, who's Ivan. And then you have Ryan Clark, who's obviously his kid, who's going to be there next year, but he's still there. That's like one of those things where it's like his dad is in the corner of Notre Dame, like his dad, like he knows it's a good thing. So, I mean, I wouldn't say like it's like a super confident buy, but I mean, right now, I think if it was like today and he had to choose today, I think he would choose Notre Dame. So
Yeah, agree. But I'm prepared to flip on this as he is as well. I just think that there's a lot to come, right? There's a lot more to come. Okay, let's go to Derek Meadows, buy or sell, ends up at Notre Dame.
I'm gonna buy. And largely just based off of like, I think what his Notre Dame has been the leader for a long time, and it kind of just reminds me a little bit of Christian Gray a couple years ago, where it was like he was, I think people were like, man, when are they going to get Christian Gray? Because it was like he was always, it's like he's trending towards Notre Dame, but then he didn't pick, and then he took business, whatever, and they got him in the end, and that was obviously a key guy for them in that class. And I think I kind of get the same vibes with Meadows, where he's interested in all these schools, and you can totally understand why he'd be interested in all these schools. I just think that in the end, the reason why Notre Dame has led, in addition to like kind of being on him the longest, is that they know he fits, and he knows he fits. So that's why I think that he's going to end up in Notre Dame. And I also think like the part where like Duce Knight is tearing it up and whatever, like that helps. Not these other teams have great quarterbacks too, but it's just, that's what I'm saying.
I'm buying too. I think he likes it. I think he likes Notre Dame. Here's the thing. These other schools, right? None of them can say you have been our guy from the beginning. And Notre Dame can. Notre Dame can say that. And I think he knows that. Right. And I think that makes a big deal to him, or that is a big deal to him. And I think he also likes Notre Dame. I think he wants to go to Notre Dame. And I think he's going through the process because he should go through the process. That's smart, especially when it's like the schools that are after him right now. You got to go look, and that's totally fine, right? And I think that's fair. I think he knows that Notre Dame is where he wants to go. I truly believe that. And so I'm buying. I think he's going to be at Notre Dame. I do. And I don't want to blow smoke, because a lot of these, like I'm going through them. I'm like, when am I going to find a sell? I'm not totally sure, but like, I just think that's correct. I think Notre Dame's done a real good job with him specifically as well. Let's keep it on the wide receiver track. Tanu Kynes, buy or sell, Jamie?
I'm going to sell with Tanu Kynes, mostly because of I'm not sure how hard Notre Dame is pushing for him. And I'm also not sure how hard all these other schools are pushing for him. And he seems to be like it's been very enigmatic in terms of like, he's supposed to go here this weekend. Oh no, he went there. Like there's a lot of kind of mystery surrounding, his recruitment. And I don't know, like, I mean, sometimes it works out that way, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, Notre Dame got this guy. Like, I think Emil Wagner was a guy that they didn't even know until like the announcement, and that almost never happens, right? But that happened recently, right? So maybe it'll be something like that, but I don't know. I just don't have a read on it, and because of that, I just think he'll just end up elsewhere.
I agree. There's no read, like no real good read that I have either. Because like you said, like since he got these other offers from schools like Texas, for example, it just seemed like that's where he's going to go. Like he's from Texas, like Texas is after him. Why wouldn't he go to Texas? Like to me, I don't know if it's, I think that it's a reflection of how I think he feels about Notre Dame and Notre Dame's opinion of how he feels about them. At least that's my impression. I don't know how Notre Dame has sold him, right? And so I don't want it to be like I have insight on this. I don't. It's just my impression of it. I think he's going to go to a Texas school, specifically Texas. I think he's going to go to Texas. So I'm selling in that it has less to do with Notre Dame. And I think more just like, hey, Notre Dame was like one of the bigger schools at first to get on him. And now other schools have gotten on him. And then for him, it's just going to be like, hey, like I'd rather just stay closer, especially if I can go play for Texas, which is like Texas is doing a really good job on the recruiting trail. They have a good program over there. They're in the playoffs last year, almost in the national championship game, right? So that's what I think is going to happen. John Anthony Hall, where are you at with this, Jamie? Buy or sell? I'm gonna buy him. I think he's gonna end up in Notre Dame's class, and I don't like. I'm like 51% on that, so but I'm taking the buy. But I don't have a good sense of it. But I think Notre Dame wants 5, and I think he's going to be the 5th one. What do you say?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I kind of think that there's just a lot of reasons for him to choose Notre Dame, including like, you know, the fact that it's local, the fact that it's like academics, and you know, obviously he's considering Stanford as well. Like, I think he and the basketball part of it and all of that. So I think ultimately, like, yes, he would be the 5th guy. So if they decided to go 4, then maybe not. But like, I do think that he, you know, I would be like leaning towards buy right now.
Yeah. Dylan Robinson. I'm interested. I truly don't know how to feel about this. So I'm going to say, but tell you buy or sell. I'm going to put it on you first. Where do you think he ends up?
I'm going to choose buy because of what, you know, I read from Christian and Madden Intel today. Basically, like, Notre Dame thinks they lead for him. So I just think that, you know, if that's the case, like, that's where they think they're in a good spot for him, and that's kind of like all I got to go off of. So yeah, and which would be, obviously, if you end up with Meadows and Robinson, those 2 big fast guys in the class, that's great. That's awesome. So I'm going to say buy for him as well.
I'm going to say sell. I'm going to hedge a little. I really want Notre Dame to end up with Robinson. I just think the compliment is too perfect with Meadows. And so, but like Notre Dame thinks they lead. I trust Matt and Christian that they're writing that's actually the case. Absolutely 100%. I don't like, I think, you know, or they think. I don't like, I wish I had a better vibe about this. And for some reason I don't, and I don't know why. And I know Matt's opinion, right? And I'm going against it. I just think that I just have a bad vibe about this, and I don't know what it is, but I'm going to say sell. The information notwithstanding, I just think something is going to happen where some other team is going to jump in at some point, and they're going to kind of take the forefront on the lead there.
Based on what? This is just a hunch? Like,
yeah.
Just a hunch. Okay.
Yeah. Vibes.
Okay. Like some team that isn't on his list now is going to jump in later.
Yes. Yeah. I don't like that it's so new.
Even though with there's not much time to.
There's not much. 100%. 100%. And I just think something is going to happen. He's too good to not have the kind of attention that he has right now. And so I could see him wanting to wait. Yeah, like NV Irish. Ole Miss 247 reporter hunch vibes. Yeah, that's basically it. I don't begrudge Jamie. People with better information than me think would say bye here, including like Jamie and Matt and Christian probably. I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about it. But that's for me. Man, that's why we have a show where we're just kind of prognosticating here. All right, last one. Nathaniel Owusu Boateng. Buy or sell, Jamie?
I'm gonna buy. I think they're gonna get him. I think that, and it's strictly based off of and you know, he hasn't put a timeline exactly where it sounded like maybe he was going to go to all the way to signing day or whatever, but you know, he could go earlier than that. Just based on how he talked about Notre Dame compared to how you know, how he's talked about every other school.
Yeah.
And it just seemed Notre Dame was different in the right way, and that's always why people choose Notre Dame, because Notre Dame is different. So, but it's got to be the right way different, because sometimes it's the wrong way, and guys right away they're like, "It ain't for me," which fair enough. But that's the vibes that I got from that, and obviously, they're cautiously optimistic that they can land them right now too. So that's what I think will happen. I think they're going to get them.
I am going to buy. Here's the thing. If it's USC, Michigan, and Ohio State, I've been on this. I think Notre Dame beats them. I think they will beat them out if those remain the teams. Because it's kind of like you said, and it kind of goes to like why he's talking about Notre Dame different, because they are different. Notre Dame is different than all of those teams. And I know Michigan just won national title. That's not the same program. It isn't. I'll bet you it doesn't even feel the same for everyone who's going there or everyone who's looking at them. It's just the staff has turned over. Sharon Moore does not have the cachet. Wink Martindale does not have the cachet that like Harbaugh does. It's just I think, especially with his brother went to Notre Dame, and his success and his continued success and the degree he's gotten, I just think Notre Dame is going to win that against those schools. Like, get out of here with USC. Get out of here with that. Like, come on. Notre Dame's not going to lose him to USC. They won't. If they really, really want him, they will not. Ohio State they could lose him to Ohio State. That people go to Ohio State. They have a very good recruiting class right now, and they're going all in a way they haven't in a long time. So I will accede to that. But I just think Notre Dame's they're gonna find a way to land him. I think they've got kind of a hold on what he wants and how to recruit him, and I think they're gonna end up with him. So that's that. Buy or sell. Are there any other recruits, Jamie? I feel like
Madden Fermo.
Madden. That's right.
I mean, whatever. We could just both say buy.
We're gonna say buy there. Yeah. We think Notre Dame's gonna end up with him. In my mind,
big visit this weekend though, because I do think I do think that Notre Dame will land him, but scheme wise, what Pete Kwiatkowski does at Texas is something that I think kind of fits him too. Like I said, he's got to fit in Notre Dame scheme, but that's something. So I don't know. Could be interesting. And let's face it, Austin's a lot cooler than South Bend. So it just is.
Not wrong. That's not wrong.
So, look, I'll just, we'll see what happens, but I would say bye. Yeah.
They've got a good program there. Steve Sarkisian's doing a very good job in recruiting. So it's a real threat for sure. All right, let's get to this super chat from PQ. What it do? Love the show, gentlemen. Great stuff as always. Apologies for the off-topic question. No problem. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for enjoying the show. I was hoping Greg could inform the viewers which franchise has the most NBA championships now. Listen, congrats to the Boston Celtics. Okay, congratulations on your championship. You beat one 50-win team. That's good. Good job. Like I'm proud of you, right? Everyone who they played in the lead up, less than 50 wins in the Eastern Conference, everyone got hurt. Donovan Mitchell got hurt. The entire Knicks team got hurt. Who else got hurt? I know there was somebody else who got hurt in the run up, and there was their best player. And that's great. So, congratulations to the Celtics. I think it was 80-21, fifth best point differential ever. Put it on the banner. Put it on the banner. Fifth best point differential ever. No, congratulations. And I think the thing that about Boston fans is like in a week's time, you'll be back to, an inferiority complex and the self-loathing, which is why you come here for that. Listen, like when you won the majority of your championships when on parquet floors and everyone was wearing PF Flyers and Converse and that sort of thing. Congratulations for that. I've been alive since I've been alive. The Lakers have won 6 titles and the Celtics have won 3. So look, as far as I'm concerned, it's 6-3 in favor of the Lakers. And I've had a great run as a Laker fan. It's been going great. I'm very happy for everyone who is feeling happy today. That's what I have to say about it.
You know what? I mean, not to pull up the rebuttal, but are we going to talk about how the Lakers count the Minneapolis championships?
I don't care. Well, that's the thing. Like, I don't care about the total. Like that means nothing to me. Like Notre Dame's all-time winning percentage, all-time wins. Like, I don't. That doesn't really mean anything to me. Like the 18 versus 17 doesn't matter. I've never touted that. I don't count. Like, they shouldn't count the Minneapolis ones. They shouldn't, because it's a different franchise completely. But they've been in LA for my entire life, and Boston has been in Boston for my entire life. It's 6-3.
So okay, let me ask you this one question. We'll just end it with this, because I know not everyone. Some of these other people have checked out, but how are you feeling about one, JJ Redick as the Lakers' new head coach, and 2, the fact that the Celtics and a lot of other teams, specifically in the West, because like you said, the East is pretty down. It's It's down. But so many other of the teams, specifically in the West, and the Celtics in the East, are built to kind of go have sustained runs here where they're going to be, real contenders.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lakers is just, it's hard to envision them improving that much based on LeBron's age, whether or not he's going to be there, and whether or not they can add, because I don't know who they could add. That's always the thing, right? Who can they add? Because they tried to add and they couldn't, right? So how are you feeling about that part of it?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about any of it. I think that the big mistake that they made is they chose Talen Horton-Tucker over Alex Caruso, who is now went to the Bulls, and now he has been traded to the OKC. That was a mistake. They should not have done it. It was a mistake in real time. And then
was that a clutch thing, or what was that? Why did they do that?
They just they were THT at the time was he was a ball handler creator, and he was he had length and all this stuff, and they thought he could develop his offensive game. He just couldn't. I mean, look, he had some really good games there. I mean, he was a guy that could go up for 30 plus, right? It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen for them, right? But the chemistry piece, the way that he fit into the team, I'm speaking of Caruso, that was what you want to hang on to. The fact that they traded KCP and Kuzma, the fact that they traded KCP and Kuzma for Russell Westbrook, clearly they took a swing there, and in real time, again, it was don't do this, do not. And now they've done that. They don't have those assets anymore. So you just needed to not do those things, basically. And they did them. And to your point, now LeBron, he's a free agent. They're going to resign him probably to the max contract, because you kind of have to. You go in on LeBron, you got to do that, right? You have to go in on the max deal. And so that's what they're going to do. But to your point, you're not building towards anything. Basically, you're waiting for LeBron and AD to leave, and then you tear it down and build it back up. That's just how it's going to go. In my opinion, Jeannie Buss, I love the Buss family and what they've done for the Lakers. She needs to sell the team. They don't have enough money. for what the market, for what the brand is. The brand is worth billions. They don't have billions. You got to sell the team.
Competing with too many billionaires now.
Yeah, like this stuff with you're not paying up for Hurley, for Dan Hurley. Come on, man. Like that's just straight up. You don't have enough money. You don't have a huge front office. You don't have that many scouts. Like they don't have the kind of money to spend and to build up your overall operation there. You got to sell the team. I know it's hard for them, right? Jerry Buss was a genius. They call him Dr. Jerry Buss. He was a doctor in chemistry. Like it's not like he just called himself, that was a nickname. He has a literal PhD in chemistry, or he had before he passed away. The man was a genius. He was a very smart man. And he was great for the Lakers. That time is gone, and Jeannie's done to go. They won a championship. Congrats to her, right? Congrats to Rob.
She loves the Lakers, whatever. You
absolutely.
That as part of it. I think, she cares. She actually cares. And that I think is something that gets kind of brushed over.
Yeah. So I just think, it's not an easy decision for her. And I'm not going to sit here and whine and cry about it if she doesn't, because to be honest, and this is my true feelings on it. I'm like the Celtics Lakers thing, 6-3. Look, I was 15 years old when Shaq and Kobe came to the Lakers. No one gets a run like I had as a fan of a team. No one gets that. That Shaq and Kobe, and then I had Kobe and Powell. I had Kobe for 20 years. No one gets that. And I got that. I'm grateful for it. I didn't take it for granted. I don't take it for granted. I'm very open, or I'm very clear-eyed about the fact that I'm not going to get that again. It just doesn't happen, right? Something I got, I'm happy with whatever happens. Like it literally doesn't bug me that much. Like I'm doing a bit for PQ What It Do. I really don't care. I got a great fandom with the Lakers. Whatever happens now is gravy. That's truly how I feel about it.
It's a great way to think about it, and I really think people should appreciate. I think when you get older, you start to think that way with a lot of stuff. You gotta appreciate all that stuff. It's like for all the people the Patriots fans who got 20 years of Brady. Like, man, talk about luck. Like
you're just not getting that again.
Yeah,
it's just the way it works. And the LeBron thing was cool, right? Like I've enjoyed all of it. It's great. And look, we haven't gotten it with Notre Dame. To bring it back to Notre Dame, I haven't gotten that with Notre Dame in my 30 plus years of following them. Maybe it's coming, right? We're always ready for that, right? And that's what I think everyone who's listening, to tie it back in, that's what we're all hoping for in the 2025 class. Hopefully, the Duce Knight class is the one that brings it around. CJ Carr, Cam Williams, and on and on. So that's what we're all hoping for. PQ What It Do to wrap it up. Thank you, Greg. No fun in winning if I can't mess with Laker fans a bit. Great show as always. Go Irish. Absolutely. No problem, man. And so with that, we will end the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please hit the like. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you know whatever it is we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. We'll be back next week, hopefully with regular programming. Although summer camps are starting, so we're going to have to change our start time. So be aware of that, Jamie. We might have to move back 30 minutes to 12:30 Eastern time. So everyone be aware of that. Have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and